Hey everybody, it's Chris, and today we're looking at Dynamic Disc's new release, the Sergeant. The Sergeant is being billed as a disc that slots in between the Getaway and the Raider, so similar flight to those two discs, a straight flight with a decent fade. It does have a 2.1 centimeter rim, so it's 2.1 centimeter rim, so it does slot in between them. The Raider's a 2.3, the Getaway is a 2.0, so it is speed-wise in between the two of them. Apologies, head cold. The numbers are 11.4, 0, 2.5. So it's supposed to have a pretty moderate fade. I think it does turn a little bit more than that, but I will also say that the release plastic for the Protos is usually this particular plastic tends to be a little bit more understable than the Lucid, say. So I think that you're going to see a little straighter flight out of the Lucid when they do release on the 19th, I think. Checking numbers. Yep. First run Lucid and Moonshine go to the buybacks at 319. So I do think you'll see a little bit straighter flight from the Lucid when it comes out. Now for the comparison, I don't think the Raider actually shows up in the video. You will see the Getaway, and what you'll see is the Sergeant has a similar flight to the Getaway, just a little bit longer. It is faster. But there are two other discs I really wanted to highlight, especially the first one. That's going to be the West Side Boatman. Now a lot of people are surprised when you tell them the Boatman has a 2.2 centimeter rim, which puts it like, that's a destroyer wing. That's how wide it is. But it doesn't fly quite as fast as the wing seems to say it should, and that's not a bad thing. It just tends to be used as a slightly slower disc by a lot of people with different arm speeds. I think the Sergeant can fill that gap as well. I think the Sergeant is a disc that slower arm speeds are going to be able to pick up and get a little bit more distance, but still a really true flight out of. So that could be pretty cool. And the other one I want to highlight is the Trespass, because the analogy I've been using online is the Getaway is to the Escape as the Sergeant is to the Trespass. So 2.1 centimeter rim, similar there, as well as the Getaway and the Escape being the same rim width, but a little bit more overstable flight. So if the Trespass is turning out and coming back to center, maybe just a little bit more, the Sergeant might still turn out, but you're going to get a healthy fade out of it. So a little more reliable in the wind, you can crank on it a little bit more, etc. So I think those are the comparisons I'm going to use. A little bit faster than the Getaway, fairly similar flight, fairly similar feel to the Trespass, but a little more overstable, and filling a similar slot to the Boatman. You're going to see some similarities there, but again, different rim width as well. So that's my quick take. I have lots of footage, so I'm going to go to that now. If you have any questions or comments, please put them below. Before anybody asks, I've never thrown a Lucid X Trespass, so I don't know how they'll compare. I've heard the Lucid X Trespass is a little more aggressive than the regular Trespasses, so probably ballpark, but I'm guessing the Sergeant is probably still a little more overstable. Again, that's a guess. But any other questions or comments, please put them below. Let's talk about this disc. It's a pretty exciting release, I think, for a lot of people. It is going to be a tweener disc in some bags, but that could be helpful for certain courses. Where I think it really crushes, I'm going to comment on that, is just being able to put it up on big hyzer lines and just letting it glide out with relative ease. So watch the footage, hit me or hit the comments below, and thanks for watching. Going out to the field and the course, let's actually do something I don't usually do, include some forehand throws. I am working on it this year, so it may be included more going forward. You can see wobbly flight, but this does go out to 235, which is about my max right now with the forehand. You're going to see a little bit cleaner throw here. This hole is right around 200 feet. Hard right turn behind the V in the tree. This flight was almost perfect for me. Now if you have a faster forehand, obviously if you throw farther distance, you're obviously going to get a slightly different flight. If you have a slower forehand, that 235 range, that's kind of what you can expect. Here, a little bit faster on the backhand, you can see that nice straight flight with overstable finish. This is where I think they shine, these high lines. They really like to glide. Even with that tree hit, you can see how far it does push forward and how far left it gets. With a little bit of headwind and a little bit of tilt as well. You can see it kicks out to the right before slamming back to the left. There's that overstability, very similar to the Getaway in flight in that way. They do throw well in the spike hyzer. This is only about a 240-foot hole, but you can see power it down, give it a lot of height, and it really wants to go left. We'll start this comparisons with the Getaway. Now on this flight, the Getaway is turned over just a little bit more in the headwind, but you can see both discs kick out a little bit to the right because of that the tilt and the headwind as well, but both have that stability to come back to center a little bit farther, so similar flights there. And both of these discs, I think, really excel for me on big hyzer lines, where I can throw them out and just let that natural stability as well as the wing glide back to the left. The Sergeant was thrown a little bit more inside, and you can see that here, but both beautiful flights. Next we'll move on to the Trespass. These are, again, both 2.1 centimeter rims. You're going to see here the Sergeant does lift higher, but again, although both discs turn out, the Trespass fades back to center. The Sergeant definitely has more overstability, is going to end up left. And here's a good look at that as well. These are both thrown so that they will go left. I gave the Trespass more height and more hyzer on the release so that it would give a more gliding flight to the left. The Sergeant still ends up more left even on that flatter throw. Alright, so let's go to the main comparison, and that's going to be the Boatman. In these first two flights, you're going to see just hard pulls. You're going to see the wind is going to tilt them out, and my flex is going to tilt them out just a little bit, but that stability is going to kick in the end, just cause them to fade back to center. Now that's with a fairly hard headwind. On a calmer day with a little bit of torque, again, they're going to stand up, similar flights, similar push forward, similar finishing locations. Usually these discs ended up within 15 feet of each other. A little more height, and this is where I think the Sergeant, for me, I really like to throw it, is give it a little bit of height and let it glide left. And the Boatman's a similar style of disc, so if we let them go up, they're going to fade left near that corner post. On this one, I'm going to force them over on Annie. The Boatman did start more right, so it is going to finish more right, but these flights are very similar. You can see them drifting hard right because of that tilt. The stability kicks in, pulls them just a little bit back to the left. And one more, this is out on the course. I'm going to throw them up over to up on the right to get over this tree line, fade back to the pin that's straight ahead. So for my arm speed maxing around 400 feet, this is the stability of a disc that I really like for throwing these big hyzer shots. The Getaway is a similar style of disc because it's not super overstable, but I can get a little bit more height on my hyzers more naturally than maybe an overstable disc like a Felon because of that little bit lower stability rating, and it allows me to throw discs that will fall back toward the pin like this. And here's the cleanup. There's that Getaway shot. The Sergeant, for comparison, was really close to that as well. And then the shot of the Boatman and the Sergeant, you're going to see Boatman's pin high on the right. Sergeant is right underneath the basket. So this style of disc, I think, is good for a little bit slower arm speed to throw those big hyzer shots with. To wrap up, the Sergeant is an 11-speed, fairly overstable disc. It's going to slot in between the Getaway and the Raider speed-wise. It's going to be a more overstable complement to the Trespass. For newer players or slower arms, it's going to give you just a little bit more aggressive fade than the Trespass will give you. For bigger arms, it should give a nice straight flight with reliable fade. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.